This is the Enrichment Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Enrichment Sports Source. We are going to break down a game yesterday that ended with a play that, fair or not, will probably be viewed as a testament to an era of Tennessee basketball. We'll discuss the timeout before the three, which I think was a bad break. We'll see if everybody agrees with me or not. We'll also dig into a lot of coaching stuff because I know that's what people have talked about all week. Everywhere I go, that's all you hear. So we will dive into that in depth today. We'll also have a nice big announcement about the Sports Source coming up later. We're going to take another step forward, something different we're doing in our evolution on this show. You'll want to watch and stick with us because it could impact the way you DVR us in the future. All right, this first segment of our show brought to you by Enrichment Federal Credit Union. Folks, it's time to get last year's holiday bills once and for all and all your credit card debt behind you with an Enrichment Federal Credit Union Holiday Recovery Loan. Gather all your bills and credit card statements and consolidate them into one low-cost, fixed-rate loan from Enrichment. Only available through the end of the month. So in other words, you want to do this great consolidation loan, get to Enrichment this week. You got a week to get there before the 28th. Enrichment Federal Credit Union. All right, I want to introduce the panel, and Don DeVoe is back with us. Don, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
Of course, Don, a former 500-game winner, former coach here at UT. Mark Pankratz, formerly of the Cuonzo Martin staff, of the Bruce Pearl staff, played for Bruce Pearl. Good to have you with us. Right over here, Vince Ferrara steps in for us. You pinch hit on radio, you pinch hit on TV. You, of course, do your own radio show on 990, the News Sentinel sports page. Vince, thanks.
Thanks, John.
Chuck Cavaleris with us all the time. Always good to have the media mogul here from Golf News for Tennessee and 4,000 other publications. Chuck, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, John.
All right. So those who last week said UT would not win out down the stretch can raise their hand and say they were right. Beat Georgia. Looked pretty good in beating Georgia on Tuesday. And then go to Texas A&M, a team that was probably your worst loss of the year at home, and suffered arguably a tie for the second worst loss of the year by losing to the Aggies down there 68-65 in overtime yesterday. I want to talk about the end of the game. That's all anybody's talking about. After battling back to within 2 points from being down, Josh Richardson seemed to be trapped kind of right outside the three-point line. Didn't know what he was doing. He was going looking left, looking right. Cuonzo Martin finally steps out, calls the timeout, just as Richardson finds Antonio Barton, who hits his lone shot of the day, a three-pointer that would have won the game for Tennessee. It comes off the board. Guys, people are debating this, saying that Cuonzo Martin was wrong to call that timeout. I didn't see it that way. I think at the time he has no idea that Antonio Barton's going to get the ball or hit a three. I didn't see a problem with it. Anybody see a problem with it?
No, I didn't. I thought it was when it got to that point with Josh being in such scramble mode, I thought it was a great decision. They weren't going to get a good look. Prior to that,
leading up to scramble mode,
do you call a timeout to get into a play to make sure you're running something? But they did. Out of the free throw line, both wings, Josh and Jordan, crossed, so they came off down screens. They went to the same side where Jarnell was at. Jarnell didn't seem to post hard, and then they ended up with two guys on Josh. And it turned out to be a good timeout, but because he made the shot, people question it. And it turned out Coach ran a great play out of a timeout and got Jarnell an and one basket with a chance to win the game. That's all you can ask for.
Don, your thoughts on calling a timeout right there? It backfired, obviously. There's no debating the fact that it didn't turn out to work. But at the time, did you have a problem with him calling a timeout there?
No. Mark's right on. There was so much pressure put on the ball. Richardson didn't have an opportunity to drive it. The passing lanes were shut off. And he's a long way from the basket. He couldn't even throw the ball up because he was under great pressure. So, give credit to A&M. They did everything you could. They were pressuring Tennessee so hard that nothing was working, and that's where the coach has the option to call the timeout. And thank goodness that's where the trail official always stands. He's over there by the bench, so in the event the players don't recognize they need a timeout, the coach could call a timeout. It didn't used to always be that way, but that's a good rule. And Coach Martin had every right to call a timeout then because the team was in big trouble.
Very quickly, guys.
He started to call the timeout with about 4 seconds left. they didn't grant it to him until just as Barton was. And you can see the official
Releasing out.
before he was signaling that no basket. So it really, it was just the timing of when the official made the call that made it.
And then plus there have been issues about when Konzo has called some timeouts, which makes it even that much more of what's going on there. And then Antonio Barton's reaction didn't help any. The way he acted like,
Although I think that was natural if you hit your one shot of the day.
But I
it
mean, for the
doesn't get-
people
but
that are
still,
going to be,
the
crying like that,
anti-Konzo crowd
yeah.
will point that and see that. Yeah, I agree with you. Stokes, Mark mentioned, he gets the ball on the inbounds coming out of that. You got a chance to win with the free throw. He misses the free throw. But overall, Vince, I know you ran some numbers. Touches for Jarnell Stokes. And this is something that was an issue against Missouri. And granted, Missouri was crashing down on him. Now, they were in foul trouble. They were crashing down on him. So it's not like you could pound it in there on every possession. Georgia game, they made a concentrated effort. Get it inside to him. But at Texas A&M yesterday, what'd you find?
Well, 19 post passes to Jarnell Stokes in the game in 43 minutes. 46 possessions where he does not get a pass in the post. Now, granted, a couple times there's fast breaks that are included in those possessions where he didn't get the ball. There's also times where he got it above the three-point line. He was left open. He'd drive and try to make something happen. And they pass it to him above the three-point line an awful lot. Sometimes he's screening, sometimes it's just for ball pressure release. But 19 post touches in 43 minutes and 46 possessions where he's not getting the ball in the post. To me, those numbers should be reversed.
Not enough touches for Stokes in the post?
Not at all. And I think that's one of the big holes in this team is how do we get Jordan and Jarnell to play together? Because they're two of the best guys in talent-wise, best players in this conference. But it doesn't seem like we can run things and do things to get them to mesh to be playing at the same level at the same time.
If one has a big night, the other one will not. It's almost like clockwork to that point. Don, your thoughts on Jarnell Stokes and getting him the ball?
Well, I'll give Jarnell a lot of credit. He's made a lot of progress the last 5 weeks. I mean, he's playing hard. When he does get the ball in and around the post, he has been effective in scoring. Again, post feeds are so important. It's where you get the basketball, and Vince pointed out that so often he gets the ball where he's not really very effective, and that's when he gets the ball 15, maybe 18 feet from the basket after a pick and roll situation. But post feeds are really critical. I'll give the coaching staff credit. They are leaving Jarnell in there. He needs to play. This is the most minutes he's ever played in a basketball game at Tennessee. And granted, it was an overtime, but even in the other overtimes, he never played quite as much as he did yesterday. So he's playing now, and they just need to take advantage of him.
I want to quickly, before we end this break, I want to take a look at the guard play because that's where a big difference in this game was. Here you go. Field goals made versus field goals attempted. You can see Tennessee's guards shot 28%. A&M's guards shot 46%. You look at three-pointers made, three-point attempts, 20% to 41%. Free throws made, 81 to 66%. More assists and then 17 more points, and that was even more underlined if you had just looked at the point guard play for both teams. Thoughts on the guard play yesterday for Tennessee?
That's where he lost the game to me. I mean, it was just so one-sided. I think Tennessee only got 2 points, 2 assists out of your point guard position, and then I know Texas A&M was well into the 20s.
27-9.
Yeah, you just can't make up that many points, especially if you're not getting the ball into Jarnell enough. Because when you get it, he's going to convert. What gets me is a lot of times he's like 5 of 7 from the field on field goals, and then you look at what some of the other players are doing. That makes it that much more important to get him the touches.
Well, and from an offensive standpoint, we've hung our hat on defense. And we could not keep them out of the paint. Texas A&M scored 36 points in the paint to Tennessee's 32. It wasn't because they got guys on the block. It was because their guards continually penetrated the paint and got layups.
Which goes back to something we've been talking about all year. Trey Golden was a guy who would do that same kind of thing for Tennessee in the past. Got to the free throw line 1,000 times last year. I think when you look back at this season, one of those big question marks will be Trey Golden's out, Antonio Barton's in. That one just did not work out the way I think a lot of people expected it to. Coming up, next segment, Konzo Martin's record against other SEC coaches. It's pretty good. We'll show you how good does it matter. A petition, a grassroots effort to bring Bruce Pearl back. Fan apathy. We'll talk about that. We'll ask Don DeVoe, who's lived through one of these, what's it like to be the guy facing a hot seat season. We'll talk about football a little later in the show, and also a big announcement still to come. Stay with us on the Enrichment Sports Source. Come on back on the next segment.